Good evening, everyone. It
Good
is
evening.
that time again. We are live, Facebook Live, for our session tonight on leadership.
Leadership done right, actually. Leadership done right is hard work.
And that does make a difference, doesn't it?
Yeah, it certainly does.
So please share the broadcast. Hey, Aunt Gloria.
Hey, Aunt Gloria.
I'm in the process of sharing the broadcast. Let me see what I need to do.
Yeah, we're still new at this Facebook Live stuff, so we're still trying to figure it out, even though we've had 2 trial runs.
I gotta find it. Come on in. Thank you, everyone. Let me see. Trying to share.
This is when we need Josh.
You know, we've done a great job. It's just, it needs to come up. Okay, here we go. That's what I was looking for. Okay. Come on in, everyone. We'll be getting started momentarily. Just trying to share. Okay, did I send that to mine? I'm gonna send it to yours. My friend's timeline. Oh, let me see here. We could do. Come on in. Hello, hello. All right. Let's see here. Share. I do nothing. Which one did I just do? Let me do this one.
What's up, Brandon? How you doing, man?
Hi,
Hey, Karen.
everyone. Okay. Help me share. All right, I'm going to do one more.
Yeah, help us because we
No, I'm just slow. I'm getting it.
are not as expeditious as we would like to be.
This is fine. This is fine. You guys have something to drink, relax. We're going to be together, spend some time together. And
For
talk
those of you
about-
who just joined, I'll just reiterate what we're going to talk about tonight is one of our newest books, last couple of weeks, and we'll talk about this again. Last couple of weeks, we were talking about our other books, Parenting Done Right is Hard Work and Marriage Done Right is Hard Work. Tonight, we're going to be talking about Leadership Done Right is Hard Work.
Mhm.
And we're really excited about this book because we're actually going to be talking about leadership from a perspective probably that most people have not discussed before. I'll just leave it at that for right now.
Really looking at leadership as a concept more than as a position to possess.
Mhm.
But I just wanted to make sure, because we're very excited, that you see our books. This is the Parenting Done Right is Hard Work, but it's worth it. If you haven't gotten your copy, please do. What do you want to say?
No, go ahead.
Okay, and this is a 31-day guide with practical and effective parenting
We can see
tips.
it.
Can you see me? Tips to win the battle for your children.
And not only win the battle for your children, but also I think one of the things that it'll do is to help you develop a good relationship with the children. So even after they reach the age of majority, that you still like them and they still like you.
And that's important.
And that's very important.
And then our second book is Marriage Done Right. The screen. Marriage Done Right is Hard Work, but it's worth it. And this is a 31-day guide to put the fun, fire, and focus back in your marriage.
Yeah, and all 3 of those are important.
Do we have fun?
We have a lot of fun. I think we have fun. Yeah. Would you agree?
I agree.
Okay.
I agree, because you're silly.
Yeah. I was going to say your mama.
I know what you were about to say. And this is the one for tonight. We are talking about leadership. Leadership done right is hard work, but it's worth it.
But it's worth it.
It's a 31 It's 31 essential disciplines to becoming a leader of impact from the inside out. And that's what we're going to focus on tonight. So, of course, all of our books are available on Amazon.com. If you haven't ordered yours, please do. They are really good for Bible studies or small group studies. Because it's a devotional, you can use it, read one a day, and really take the time to go through, answer the questions, do the prayers, be thoughtful in your responses, and take notes. We provided sections in the book for each day for you to write your own notes or anything, aha moments in there, so you can use it like that. And then if you need to buy them in bulk, you can do that from us as well. You can email us at bulkbooks@empowertoengage.com, and we will take any orders for 20 books or more.
And you actually said be thoughtful, but I would say for all the books, but especially the leadership book, I would say, in addition to being thoughtful, I would say be honest, because I think the best way to get the true value out of the book and get the desired results is to be honest. And as you answer the questions, and that way you can actually improve and become the kind of leader that others will want to follow, and become a person who's always progressing and not being stagnant and definitely not going backwards. And as far as ordering the books is concerned, you said you can get them from Amazon.com. You can get them one of several ways. You can just simply type the names of the books, or you can just do a general search on our names, Tony and Nicole Davis. And if you do that, you'll see the books. They'll pop up, and you'll see all three of at least these three books right now. Then we'll have some other ones forthcoming.
Okay. So I guess we can go ahead and get started. Last week, we talked to you a little bit about our background as a married couple with our 26 years of marriage. And the week before that, we talked about how we parent and our parenting philosophy. If you haven't seen those videos, those are available on our Facebook page, empowertoengage.com. And like us if you haven't liked the page, so you can follow us anytime we're doing anything, especially as things are coming up, because they're coming up
relatively quickly.
Yes. Yeah. And we want to be able to send you that information and keep you abreast of what's going on. And we'll do that through our Facebook page. So go there and you can see those videos and still share them. And as we're bringing out more information, you'll be able to be on the front end, on the front line with us in establishing how we go forward as parents, as couples, and as leaders.
Especially as leaders. And the thing about this leadership book, I just want to reiterate this again, the leadership book will give you the qualities that you need to be an effective parent and also to be an effective spouse. Because a lot of times we learn a lot of theory, but one of the reasons we're in the predicaments that we're in now is because we learn all this stuff. I mean, even some of the people who watch this, I mean, we've even been through ministry together. We've learned a lot of things, but the real problem comes in the application of what the knowledge that we've acquired.
Right.
And this leadership book, I think this leadership book will definitely address that and help you become really, in the military term, all that you can be, right?
So that's really interesting that you said to help you be a better parent and a spouse. How can the leadership book do that?
Well, because once again, as I just said, you learn all these theories,
right? And
then even with the parent and leadership book, it's going to challenge you to do certain things, but it's going to give you the qualities to actually implement. Because, like I said, the problem is in the implementation, and we don't know how to implement all that we've learned. So if you do these things in this leadership book, it's going to help discipline you, because you're going to be honest with yourself. You're going to be honest with yourself about yourself. You're going to be honest with yourself about how you respond to certain situations. You're going to be honest with yourself about how you analyze things. And then that'll give you the qualities to actually put in the hard work to do what you need to do. Because as we said in the titles of these books, it's hard work, but it's worth it. But the problem is most of us don't want to put in the hard work. And this leadership book is actually going to help you lead yourself first. Right. Before you try to lead somebody else. Right. And it's going to help you. So, but even from like us Christians, right, from a marriage perspective, a lot of times we learn things, sounding all deep and spiritual. We'll say things like, okay, I'm having problems in my marriage, and now I'm going to learn how, I learned how not to focus on so much on her. Now I need to focus on me. Right. We learn it as nice theory, but the reality is, we end up divorced because we never learn how to focus on ourselves. And even, I go into prayer. I think I may have said this last week. If I didn't, I'll just reiterate. If I didn't, I'll say it for the first time now. But, we go into prayer, and I'll say, I'll go in there with my mouth will say, Lord, I don't want to focus on her. Show me and show me what I need to work on. And that's what'll come out of my mouth. But the reality is my heart will say, no, I really want you to justify all of her faults. And as a matter of fact, not only do I want you to justify them, I want you to justify them in my mind and show me that I'm right. I also want you to magnify them, right? But then when it comes to me, when I learn about my inconsistencies, I just say, Lord, please overlook those, and because I'm only human, and justify them and cut me a bunch of slack. So then you leave the prayer closet, you leave the prayer group, whatever the case may be, and then you go out. You even though you learn the vernacular, to say, hey, let me focus on myself and not her. Or in your case, you would say, let me focus on myself and not him. The reality is the way we carry it out is we still leave the prayer, and then we function with the same old crap. And then we get the same old results. And then we wonder why, when you fast forward the clock 5, 10, 15, 20 years, we have the same results. And I can even tell you, like, one time I was driving with our oldest son. I'll just say his name. I was driving with Jay somewhere. And, for those of you who don't know, with the newer cars these days, you can't listen to a cassette tape. But actually, I had a cassette tape in the car. And what I said to him, I said, Jay, what I want you to do, I want you to listen to this. And I said, tell me if you can tell the time period. And I said, now what I need you to do is to ignore some of the things about technology, because the preacher who was preaching at the time, he mentioned things about having beepers and making phone calls or pagers and all that kind of stuff. So, of course, when you listen to that dates the message. But I said, but if you just listen to what he was talking about from the issues that were present at the time and what we need to do to resolve those issues, I said, can you tell me if this was preached before you were born, or actually not before you were born, because he was like 1 year old when we came back to the States. I said, can you tell me if this was preached when you were a little boy, or if this was preached last week? And the reality is, he said, minus the technology, I would think that this message was preached last week. So therefore, there's been no progress. So, but this leadership book will help you do that. Did I address the question?
Kind of, sort of.
Yeah, because I don't know where you were going with that.
So well, this is really what I was asking you, because we don't think of ourselves as leaders as a parent, or a leader as a spouse. You think of leadership.
Husbands always do, because you're supposed to be the head of the house and leadership and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, but only as it relates to being the head of the house, not in how it is that you exemplify what family members, whether it's the spouse or the children, how it is that they should interact with one another. You're not thinking about, if I say this way to my wife or to my children, I'm setting an example for the rest of the household. You're not thinking about it from that perspective. Okay. So even as leaders, because we're looking at it from the standpoint of being in some type of position as opposed to a person of influence, and that's really basically what it is, right?
Yeah, leadership is a person of influence. But
right.
Go ahead.
And that's wherever you are. So what we're doing in this book, and the cover is amazing. When you look at the cover,
I'm going to hold it up again. So for those of you who can't see, well, you should all be able to see it now. But I know you can't see what I'm about to point out. As you can see, there's a man and a woman looking at themselves in the mirror, and those little white lines that you see on their, I guess they're both wearing suits. On their suits, those are words that tell them who they are. So in other words, when you look in the mirror, what do you see? And you have to be honest with yourself in that regard. Yes,
and that is when it comes to parenting. When you look at yourself as a spouse, when you look at yourself as a daughter, a mother, a community leader, a community activist, a volunteer, no matter what it is, you need to see character attributes from yourself when you look in the mirror that are attributes that you would want to exemplify who you are, that you would say, yes, follow me. If you can't say that with the way that you talk to people, the way you behave, then this book would be perfect for you, because we are going in. This is introspection, as opposed to looking at how to get people to do what you want them to do. We're now looking at how it is that we want to change who we are in order to be better for those who are around us. So it's a really big shift in how leadership is looked at, because now if you want to see the change starts with you. Yeah. And we've always looked at it as some outward thing that we do to change an environment, but it's really the inward work that changes the environment without you doing anything extra but being. And that's what we focus on.
Yeah, and it's really, a lot of times people think that just because they have, well, I'll get to that in a second, but they think just because they have a position that they are a leader.
Mm-hmm.
Now, granted, as we just said, I don't want to contradict. I don't say everyone's a leader, but let me just back it up. People think that because they have a position that makes them a qualified good leader.
Right.
And you talk about the introspection, and you address it from the point of being a parent. I'll address it from the point of being a husband. And for those men in the men's group that I'm a part of, I ask this question quite often, especially for men who have daughters. And I'll just simply ask, if you have a daughter and you really loved her, would you want her to marry someone like you?
Mm-hmm.
And that's a question you have to look at, because the reality is you are marrying somebody's daughter, and in particular, you're marrying God's daughter, right? But what kind of man would you want your daughter to marry? And then most men, unfortunately, a lot of men, they'll look at themselves and they realize that they're not that kind of man. But then the reality is they'll start getting into family history and things of that nature, and they'll tell you that they didn't have the example to show them how to be that kind of man. And sometimes they really just they desire to be that man, but they really don't know what to do and how do I do it and what kind of information do I get to become that kind of man. And the reality is these principles that we put in this book will address all of that. And the reality is when you're talking about being a good leader, and especially a good leader of yourself, because you talk about the introspection and what you're going to do outward, you have to first lead yourself. Mm-hmm. You have to become that quality person. This book will give you the answers on how to do that. And you can see it's not really a male or female thing. These are principles that work for everybody. Mm-hmm. And because, quite frankly, for the woman who would actually implement these principles, a man will just fall in love with her many, many times over as well, because he'll really like being around her. As I say, I think one of the most important things in marriage is wanting to be around your spouse. I like being around you. And once again, I'll hold the book up. For those who would implement the principles in this book, you will become a spouse that your spouse will like being around. Mm-hmm. They'd have to be just retarded to not like the person that you will become after reading this book and actually being honest about it and doing the work.
Or mentally challenged. We don't want to say retarded. That's not.
We don't want to say that. Correct. Okay. We've been politically correct.
Yes.
Okay. You would have to have mental challenges if you're doing this, you're putting in the work in this book, and the person that you're married to just doesn't like it. And be quite honest with you, your kids will like you too. I mean, they'll go through their teenage stuff, but the reality is they will like being around their parents. They'll try, and I can guarantee it. But you talking about position, let's just go ahead and talk about a little bit about our backgrounds. Mm-hmm. Both of us have had leadership positions, whether it was in corporate and or ministry, right? Mm-hmm. And we both have years of experience helping people and also helping people in leadership positions, whether it's been C-level executives, in my case, because I've been on the private sector, you had a nice, good government job. So you've actually been able to help a lot of those senior government leaders make decisions. And both of us have always been involved with conflict. I mean, we've helped people from a strategic perspective. We've helped people from employee relations perspective. In my case, sometimes it's on the record, a lot of times it's off the record. Mm-hmm. And but we have experience, and then even in ministry positions, led men group, ordained minister in my case, and you're ordained pastor, and you've led. I'll let you talk about your own background, but we've helped people in many different areas from a leadership position, whether we're in a leadership position or even, like I said, having those people come and seek advice from us. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And the thing that makes us love this topic in particular is because we've seen managers and leaders do it wrong for so long. You can ask the question if someone is born a leader. I believe someone can have natural attributes, but even still, you have to perfect those. You need to continue to do self-development, no matter how gifted you are naturally, and that's in any area. So over the years, just in working, I've done a lot of work also in nonprofit organizations, and because I'm a mediator, a certified mediator, working with corporations all the time, that's what you have at the table. You have a manager and an employee, and of
course the attorneys that you never liked,
and the attorneys, yes. And you're hearing these situations, and a lot of times, for whatever reason, the manager, it's hard for them to put themselves in the shoes of the person sitting over on the other side. And believe it or not, many of them used to be that very person. So you'll hear the phrase, you forgot where you came from, or what are other phrases like that? Like now that you're in that position, you think you're better than everybody. All of those kind of, like yesterday you were here with us, you got your promotion, and now all of a sudden you've become this hard, mean taskmaster with people that you have come up the ranks with. And why do we do that? Why is that necessary in order to be a leader? And so if you stop and ask those kind of questions, which I will do, I will take managers aside and try to get to the root of why is it that this is a challenge for them to be able to hear what the employees' needs are, or why is it a challenge to make the changes that would make the work environment function better. And a lot of that comes with feelings of intimidation. They feel like
you talking intimidation on the part of the employee or
of the manager. Yeah, they're intimidated
by the employee.
Mm-hmm,
Okay.
Because maybe they realize, as you mentioned earlier, that they shouldn't be in that position. And so this is the way that they're going to prove to everybody that they should be. And so when you see that over and over again, you realize that if you have managers and, a lot of.
But, let me just interject, Nicole. I think a lot of that could be cultural, too, because I know you said the intimidation, but sometimes people are just trained to act differently. And I can give the example. I remember in my current position, I was coaching a woman who was actually looking to be promoted. Mm-hmm. And actually, I spent a lot of time with her, just helping her through the interviewing process, telling her what kind of questions. I just coached her up so that she can be successful in that position, in that interview. And eventually she got the position. And maybe about, I don't know, she worked in a different building, a different location than I did. So, but every now and then she would come back to our office. And then when she came back, she stopped by my office and I asked her how it was going. And she was talking about the ups and downs of the position. And I asked her why. And she was actually coached by someone else after she got the position, a friend of hers who was actually a manager at another organization, but who was a woman. She told her that once you get in this position, you have to act a certain way. And she really was telling this woman to act more like a man. But if you were to meet her, you would say she's one of the sweetest, most polite people one of the more polite people that you would ever come across. But yes, she was coached to be a man because she was told that you have to act a certain way and be tough if you're going to be in this position. And so as a result of her trying to do that caused her problems, so sometimes it can be cultural and environment as well.
Right. Well, it's a number of variables that it could be, but you find that it's some reason that they're doing or acting the way that they are. And somebody has to get to the bottom of that to figure out what that is in order to shift whatever is keeping them from moving forward as a department. And by doing it first yourself, it alleviates a lot of that unnecessary stress in the work environment when we're always looking outward to say that it's somebody else that's causing the problems for me, or causing the problems for this department, or causing the problems for this family. When if each person is just mature enough, because it's an act of maturity, to say, okay, I'm going to look in the mirror and I'm going to really assess what I see and then make a decision to make those changes. And when you do that, then you'll find that all of your relationships will be better. You'll have better friends around you. Your family life will be better. Your work life will be better. But it takes hard work.
Yeah, and one of the reasons we wrote this book is because here's one of the things that we realized, that a lot of, especially from the organization perspective, we realize that a lot of time is wasted because people, it's not that we're like, okay, we have these deadlines and let's make sure we meet the project timelines on time and on budget and all that kind of stuff. That wasn't the premise of our initial conversation. What we talked about is that a lot of time is actually just wasted because a lot of people spend so much time talking about the bad leadership that's around them. And what we come to discover, especially with, like I said, on the record and off the record conversations, or even a lot of things that you do as a mediator and as what do you call it, assessments. We had to go in there and straighten out the whole organization and all that kind of stuff and tell them why they're wrong, what they need to do. You set the course for their new strategy.
Recommendations.
Yeah. The reality is we realize that one of the biggest problems you actually have is you have people who are in these leadership positions who really aren't qualified to be there. And we know that we need competent leaders. We know we need caring leaders, and we need leaders who also have compassion. But a lot of people just take the attitude that because I'm in this position that I'm qualified to be there. And then not only do they take that and they dog the people who are supporting them, But the reality is they don't do anything to improve themselves, to become competent.
Right.
And so we said, hey, let's include this in the Done Right series and talk about some of the things that we've seen to actually help people become better leaders. And it all starts with, a lot of leadership material that you'll read will really tell you about leading others. But the reality is we can see that we have the results that we have now because people haven't learned how to lead themselves first. And the Bible actually talks about why are you going to look at the speck in your brother's eye when you have a plank in your own eye? And we think that's a principle that really applies directly to leadership because you're trying to lead people, but you don't even know what you're doing. So how are you actually going to lead them and where are you going to lead them? And are you going to be competent in your leadership?
Well, think about it from a parenting perspective. You are automatically now a leader, even if you're not married. And that is the case in some instances. You're now, first you're the CEO of you, but now you have people under you. You have
little ones.
Yes, a baby that grows up into an adolescent, teenager, and then has to go off themselves to become adults. And what did we instill in them? Well, they take a lot of whatever the family dynamics were, whatever that environment was. We say heredity and environment work together. And they take all of that into life. And so we say, there are generational curses. Why? Because a lot of the bad stuff that we picked up, we take that into our future, into our relationships. And where does that stop? Like who presses the pause button and say, okay, time out. We have got to do something different.
When it comes to kids, there's no time out button because by the time you realize you're having another kid.
But it doesn't have to be. And that's why I'm so grateful for my social work background because it forced me to look at human development. Now, I was naturally into that. So if you're a person that's into numbers, you're an accountant or you're a scientist, you're into medicine, those you may not be as interested in learning about the emotions and the feelings and how to relate to people, especially if you're data driven and that's where your primary emphasis is. But if you lead people, then it behooves you to figure out what has to happen so that this work environment works. And you can't do that properly. You can do it, and people are doing it all the time. That's why people change jobs the way they do, right? Retention rates are very high or low in certain places because people are leaving.
In most places, as a matter of fact. Well, but even before we get into that, let's think about something. Most people will say, well, see, here's the problem we have, and it's even tough without teaching. You're talking about kids, right? We're telling them to work hard and get the good education and learn how to network and all that kind of good stuff. And we tell them that if you do the right things, that you'll always rise to the top. The cream will rise to the top. But the reality is, look, for any of us who worked in any kind of organization, we know that can be true, but it's not necessarily true. I mean, look, people get positions, brown nosing, right? Nepotism, racism, sexism. That there are a lot of different reasons that people actually get positions or don't get positions.
Right.
And then, but once again, those people actually become leaders, right? Or people in charge. They have leadership positions and they have more money and they make decisions and they are not qualified at all. But you talk about like retention rates. I mean, there was the stats show that the statement is that people don't necessarily leave companies, they leave managers. They leave because of bad management. And there was a recent poll done by Gallup where that showed that over 50% of people, I think they surveyed, it was like in 2016, they surveyed about 2,700 people. No, I'm sorry, not 27, 7,200 people. And they said that the majority of the people who actually leave, they actually leave not because of more career opportunity, not because of more money, but the results show that they actually leaving to get away from a manager. And for those of you who are in positions, you know that that's true. Those of you who are looking for jobs, you know that that's true. And unfortunately, some of you may even be that manager that people are trying to get away from. So those are very true. But even with retention, the bottom line is, and not even a Gallup poll, you can look at a whole lot of different polls. They will show you that the primary reason people are leaving is to get away from their manager.
And you think about also people are in positions because there's simply a vacancy. We just need somebody to do the work.
Oh, that's government work.
That doesn't happen in corporate?
No.
You don't put people in positions in corporate that to fill a need? No?
Well,
we may not necessarily be the right person?
Well, no, we put the wrong people in positions all the time, but usually, especially if it's a good position, it's usually somebody getting hooked up. You know, somebody has a niece, a cousin, or a friend of a friend. Yeah.
It happens. It happens in corporate, and it happens in the government, and it also happens in church. There could be a need in church. You know, we need somebody to be over the children's ministry, or we need somebody to be over.
No. See, that's just bodies, but
but you're still a leader.
Yeah, you're still a leader, but I don't know if those are necessarily desirable positions. Because if you like over a children's ministry,
that could be a desirable position. It's not desirable to you.
But you're not necessarily leading. You don't necessarily. Well, I don't know. Maybe
you have people working with you if they're volunteers that are also working with the children.
I guess somebody get a big head and start bossing people around.
Well, you don't know how to deal with people. And see, and that's the thing. Anytime you have to interact with people, and this is one of the things I say, conflict is going to occur wherever there are two or more people.
Yes.
It doesn't matter. It's inevitable.
Unavoidable.
So, and anytime you have two or more people, somebody has to be the leader.
Oh, she said especially in church. Okay.
Especially, and somebody has to be the leader. So somebody is giving direction. Somebody is telling people what to do. And is that the right person?
Most of the time, not. No. Most
and when we find that it's not the right person, nothing is being done about it to change it, to help it, to fix it. We just continue down that, and we decide, or we say, well, in church it's different. You make it something religious as to why we need to put up with this, or why you need to follow what I say, instead of just dealing straight, point blank. And that's the thing about us. We're very practical. Now, we are in the church. We do believe in the gifts. We are spirit beings in a body. We follow all of that. But I call a spade a spade. When I see it, if it's wrong, it's wrong. If the dance ministry is not on point, they are not on point.
Okay, babe, you ain't gonna do. Look, the bottom line is we tolerate too much incompetence. Okay, go ahead.
Let me say this.
Okay, this is on your heart. Go ahead.
I need to say this
and
because
it's on your lips too, I guess. Go ahead.
Because that's part of the problem. Instead of us dealing directly with what we see, we try to justify it or make excuses for it, and we continue to accept the wrong behavior. Now, the dance ministry, that's skill and ability. I just use that. I was just being silly. But the point that I'm making is, until we get to the point where we create standards, we have boundaries and guidelines that people are to operate by, even from personal conduct. Like, you cannot talk to people any kind of way. When you come in the room, you should speak to everyone. Just simple courtesies.
Manners,
you should say thank you.
Manners,
but there are people who don't do it, and we don't call them on it.
Yeah, we experience it all the time.
And you don't call them on. So what does that start in a workplace? I'm dealing with those kind of situations all the time, especially if you speak to some people and you don't speak to other people. Then we have to address that, because now you feel some kind of way about your manager and you're not doing your job.
Yeah, you're spending all your time complaining at that point. Like, I can't believe this, and this. And before you know it, you're so unproductive, because and the thing about, you're complaining to people who usually agree with you.
Yes.
Because they've experienced the same thing.
Yes.
And look, you know it as well. Not only do people complain about their managers, but they get in conversations about complaining about other people's managers, and then the vice president and the senior vice president, and it goes down the line. I mean, people spend so much time complaining, but the reality is, once again, getting back to the book, especially if you're one of the people who are in a leadership position. Now, this book is going to help you not be that person that others are always complaining about. So, I mean, if they're complaining about you now, get the book. You'll become the kind of leader that they'll stop complaining about. They'll actually like working for you, like being around you, and actually they'll as they say, like a lot of times in sports, they'll say, we leave it all on the field for this manager, or we leave it all on the field for this coach, or they'll go through a brick wall for him. You will actually become that kind of person that they'll want to do that for, and not you just somebody that they're bossing around. They really can't stand you and just want to get away from you.
And so we actually say that there are three kind of leaders. We say there are good leaders, those who are qualified based on competence and soft skills, right? Then we say there are bad leaders.
Those are the ones that most of us have experienced.
They're not qualified. They have poor people skills.
Well, they are qualified because they knew somebody.
Or they're qualified with poor people skills. And that's even worse.
Horrendous people skills, yes.
Because you think I can do the job. That's all that matters. We get the job done. But that's not all that matters.
And I'm going to tell you, so just even in my organization, you know, I'm not going to give any names, but there's a one woman we actually hired. I guess she's been there almost about a year now. And she's well compensated. I mean, she's getting paid nice, right? And when she came in under one director. And this guy, he was a guy who wasn't very competent, and he ended up getting replaced because that's one of the things let me just digress a little bit, because we see this stuff happens at internet speed. So because even especially in the corporate environment, I don't know about the government, but in the corporate environment, at some point in time, some kind of way, sometimes somebody is going to want you to produce, right? So here's the guy. So anyway, this guy, he left, and then they promoted within the department, and the guy that they put in place was the person who was really serving as a team lead. So he knew the job. And then we put him in an executive position. And now the woman, she's like, I got to get away from him. She can't, I mean, as a matter of fact, what's today? Thursday? I was in the office on Tuesday. She came to the office on Tuesday and said, I got to get away from him. And it's not that he doesn't know the job. It's that his personality is like, nobody wants to work with him. And as a matter of fact, ever since he got in the position, people were like, I got to get out of here. You know, they're looking all over the place, either within the organization or even outside the organization. Because, like I said, it's not because of his technical acumen, it's because of his personality.
So take that. Let's use that as an example, because there are a couple of ways that can be addressed in the workplace. One is somebody else can be an example, a righteous example with the character and with the integrity, who, as he's doing these things, they're countering it with the right kind of responses and behaviors.
Yes.
But then the other thing, I won't say but, I'll say and another way that you can handle that is to create a work environment where people feel comfortable enough coming and saying when they don't like or agree with something that's going on.
Yeah, you know, and that's very tough in the corporate environment, because look, let's be honest about it. A lot of times, from a budgetary perspective, we make decisions quarter to quarter, and if you're not careful, you have to know how to play. Look, let's be honest. Look, you have to know how to play the game, because depending on who you report to, if you're dealing with somebody who doesn't have that character, next quarter, you know, they could say, you know, we need to cut $4 million out of the budget. And one of the ways they can do it is, okay, you know, they say, we'll look at equipment, we'll look at projects, we may delay that. But one of the things they can say is, you know what? Well, we can save $400,000 worth of salary by cutting these 3 people.
Right.
And your name will end up on that list.
And this is why I'm saying what I'm saying, because what I'm talking about is a change of culture. And that starts with the leadership. I'm not saying the individual is going in and saying just to the manager, I don't like, you know, the way you talk to me. It has to become a conversation for the workplace. And that's what's not happening. You don't have enough people going to HR or talking to or creating these groups at work where, or the team meetings, or the we call them town halls or whatever. Nobody's willing to speak up, but yet we're bringing in the services, right? We're bringing in the training platforms. We're bringing in people to speak to us.
Oh, that's government corporation. We don't.
But you do. You show me a lot of leadership videos where you guys bring people in.
Yeah, that's okay. I see what you're saying, but the leadership videos I'm talking that I've showed you are leadership videos for all the people in management positions.
To become better leaders.
Yes.
But but there's no follow-up.
Oh, no.
Okay. To make sure that these things are being implemented. I could talk about trainings and whether or not training is even doing its job. Yeah. I was going to do my dissertation on that. But the Lord allowed me to do it through, I'm going to talk about leadership through another means. But all of that is important, and it starts with us. Since we can't do that, let me finish. Since we can't do that, since we cannot get managers to come around and do all of this, we wrote this book. So it starts with you as an individual looking at yourself and being honest about the changes you need to make about how you talk to people, how you interact with people, and how you are making decisions about things. If we can each do that, then I don't need you to come and tell me, I don't like the way you said that to me. If I'm introspective all the time, and I realize, okay, I've said something to you and it affected you the way I said it. You felt like I was snapping or whatever. I would notice that too. Because should, right? Your response to me says, okay, the way I said that, you didn't like it.
And you will have a desire to become a better leader.
Yes.
You wouldn't just be rest on your laurels, on the fact that you acquired the position, regardless of how you got it, even though you know you got a brown nose and or you got it because of the hookup. You would actually say, you know what, I thank God for this position, or I'm just thankful to have this position, and I want to actually be confident in it, and I want to become the kind of person that others are really inspired by and others want to follow.
And so just to go back, the third type of leader is the no leadership position. And that's really what our book is focusing on. And yet you are still a CEO. And that's what we want you to realize. You are the CEO of yourself and you have influence. If anybody is looking at you for any reason, you are a leader. If anyone needs or seeks your approval, you are a leader. And the fact that you are a part of a family, there are other people connected to you in some way, you are a leader.
In addition to that, you, as we actually said, I think we said in the introduction, but the reality is you're the CEO, CFO, COO, Chief Operating Officer of your own life. You know, you are responsible for yourself. You're responsible to make the decisions for yourself, because if you don't make them, you're going to suffer the consequences. If you make bad decisions, you're going to suffer the consequences. If you make good decisions, you're going to benefit from the consequences. So, and it's not someone else's responsibility to make sure that that happens with you. So this book is also going to help you just to lead yourself. Even if the only person you're influencing is yourself, this book is going to help you in that regard.
Well, and you won't be the only person you're influencing,
well, I mean,
because you got to interact with other people.
I understand. I'm just talking about from the mindset of the person who may be watching this now, or who may watch a rebroadcast. They may sit there and say, I don't lead anybody. I don't lead anybody. So then I'm just answering their question in advance. You're leading yourself. How about that?
Yes, and your countenance matters. I can't tell you how many people have just said to me, the way you say hello, just on the phone, it makes people, they tell me, it makes me feel important. Just a hello. So if you are mindful of just how you enter a room, start with that. If you're mindful with the tone of your voice when you speak to people, it starts with that. That is impacting people. And they're so small, but they're so major when it comes to somebody else, because you really don't know what they're going through. You really don't know the difference that you can be making. And that is being a leader. I mean, we say all the time, we are the hands and the feet of Jesus. That's in everything we do. So it is, I love the fact that we can continue to reinvent ourselves. We can continue to improve. Every day gives us a new opportunity to do it better and to get it right. And the way we wrote this book as a devotional, you can go back through it at any time. You can reread the pages, especially if there's a topic that really resonates with you. You can read that over and over until you feel like you've mastered all the things that it's addressing.
Yeah, and I can tell you though, but with this particular book, and as we said with all the other books, you know, definitely read the introduction so you can get a feel for what the book is about, because even some of the topics, when you read them, you may look at it on its face, but the reality is when you read what we actually said, you'll see that we're going in a different direction. But with this particular book, we were actually extremely careful with the order that we put the days, because for instance, let me just open it up. So for instance, as we said, read the introduction first. Those of you may be able to see that. Read the introduction, and then each day has a topic. And for day number 1, we actually put practice giving and everything has a practice giving the word of God first place. And as a leader, especially as a Christian leader, that's foundational. The word of God has to supersede all other opinions. You know, that's going to set the foundation for what you do. And that's very important. And then we put in here for day number 2, meditate on the word of God. Number 3, practice doing the word of God, because, you know, you can't be a hearer only. You got to also be a doer of the word. And so we were really strategic. Now, granted, as you said, you know, so we would recommend for this particular book that what you would do is you would go through the 31 days in the sequence. But then after that, for those topics that strike you the most, that you would, you know, go back and, as you would say, exhaust them, and you would then put the work in. And we have the reading itself, and then we have a conduct evaluation. Sometimes in the reading we have questions that we will ask you to answer right there in the reading. So do that. But then there's a conduct evaluation, and as we said earlier, those questions aren't necessarily meant to be easy peasy questions. They're really meant to help you do some introspection and really do things in a different way, so that you can get the desired results. So that when you're looking at your life 3 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, that you can actually do things in a different way, and you won't say, well, yeah, 2018, I can't tell the difference between 2018 and 2013 because there has really been no growth. That won't be your story. You're going to really, even as we said in one of the other books, you're going to deal with the mess. You're going to deal with your own junk, and you're going to get better. And that's the only way that you're going to get better, is if you're honest in how you answer these questions. So that's what we did there. And then we have, like we did with the other books, we have a page or two of notes where you can actually jot down your notes. And if you're married, I would even say, go through this book together with your spouse. You know, you challenge each other and look at each other's answers and see how honest they are. And look, be quite honest with
maybe not.
Maybe not. What do you mean? Maybe not.
Share
with your spouse.
Maybe not share.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, because it might cause an argument, huh?
Yeah.
It might cause an argument. Okay, so you use discretion, discernment, wisdom. Go pray about that, I guess.
Yes, be careful.
Be careful.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're married, you and your spouse should definitely work through it, because it's going to help you guys become the better person. To help you work on the issues in the marriage, and then also, and everybody has issues, right? But so issues doesn't necessarily have to mean a bad thing, but it's going to help you work through the issues and challenges in your marriage, and just the daily challenges of life, and you're going to become the quality person that can actually work through it. And you'll learn how to reading this leadership book will actually help you work, without a doubt, it'll help you work better with your spouse.
And you made a really good point when you were saying foundationally, you know, of course, to get in the Word of God. And this would be really good. And I just thought of this as you were saying it. So you have your spiritual development on one hand. And a lot of times when we are reading the Bible, we really don't know how to practically apply what we're hearing. The scriptures, you know, you may memorize them. You do your daily devotional in the Word of God. But once you read that, what do you do with that information other than check the box to say, okay, I read today? Well, this is character development, and that's what this book does. So if you're reading your word as spiritual development and you're reading this book as character development, then that's a foundation that becomes very solid. And it helps you to become truly this person of character, competence, and compassion that we talked about. And you can really focus on some of these areas that we have in the book. So integrity. We all know how important integrity is. And integrity is really just being blameless in how it is that you live and what you say and what you do, that you're not a subject of criticism, because when you come in the room, everybody starts to roll their eyes or they leave. Because they don't want to interact with you because of, you know,
because you're phony.
Right. Oh, that's another one. You could be phony or just your nasty disposition.
And you're rude, but also in addition to character development, we deal with some of the traditional leadership topics as well, like about like having a vision, how to actually get a vision and communicate it with the people and actually walk it out. You know, so we talk about some of that stuff as well. But like I said, the reality is that the primary focus of this book is really become, as we said in a little tagline, become a leader of impact from the inside out, where you're going to become the kind of leader that when you get in that position, because look, we understand that some of you may have gotten those positions that you're in based on some of the wrong ways that we described earlier. You may have brown nose, or you may have gotten a hookup, and and if you did, hey, good for you. You're in the position now. But now we want to help you become a leader of impact that the people actually enjoy following. And that's what we discussed.
And some of the other topics, of course, are loyalty. So why is that an issue? The fact that we can't be dependable or committed. And that's a big problem today in the church. And I don't know if you gave all of your statistics, especially when it comes to millennials, but we're really struggling with keeping people in. And that's just one category, the millennials. But the lack of commitment is a huge problem. And that's a leadership issue.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, I don't think I did. So if I did, I'll repeat them. If I didn't, I'll just give them for the first time. But for millennials, the stats actually say that of the people who attend church today, and they're describing millennials between ages of 23 and 37, actually. But they said that when you look at the makeup, that's only 28% of the people who are actually in the church. So right now we have a bunch of old people who are in the church, and that's problematic, because it's like anything else. Look at it from a sustainability, from the point of being sustainable. Mm-hmm. If you don't have a new crop coming in, then it's eventually going to die. And we hear people talk about now about how the church is in decline. I mean, that sounds all nice and dandy, but 30 and 40 and 50 years from now, it's no longer going to be a topic. It's going to be a reality when you have nobody coming in. I know, just, me being a sports guy, you look at baseball, right? Mm-hmm. And if you look at baseball, even in this country, and you turn on the TV, we don't have a lot of American kids actually playing baseball anymore. So if you look, a lot of the guys are coming from really the Caribbean, Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, places like that. And that's where all of our talents come from, because the traditional American kids aren't playing baseball anymore. They gravitated towards other sports. And even in this area, where you have a lot of kids who will play lacrosse in the summertime, they won't even play baseball anymore. But then you look at Major League Baseball. What they did, they started investing in the inner cities and some other places, because they knew that if we don't get these people watching our sport, then eventually we're gonna lose people in the stands, and they're doing that already, and we're not going to have new talent coming forward. So that's the same thing that applies to the church. If you don't have young people in the church, then at some point in time, when the old people go off, die off, there'll be no new influx of talent to actually carry the reins. So That's why that's very important. But in addition to the millennials only comprising 28% of the church, a lot of the people who are like me, people who grew up in the church, had to go to church when I was young, whether I wanted to or not, wearing those hard shoes and those clothes that were too big for me and all that kind of jazz. 59% of those people actually are leaving the church. So even the people who were in the church are actually leaving the church. And then I don't know, I remember who actually conducted the study, but they also showed that for those who are leaving the church, their rationale was, I think it was like 49 or even 50% or almost 50%. They said that the rationale was that they didn't think that the church was actually having a positive impact on their lives, which goes right to vision. Right to vision, and when vision is a very important quality of leadership. So you may get in a position where one of the fivefold gifts, or the one here, and the primary vocal gift we have of the fivefold now is the pastor. We're talking about the local church. But if you don't have a vision, you're not going to engage the people. They're not going to be intrigued, and they're not going to want to stay. But you think because somewhere along the line somebody recognized you and you got ordained that you belong there and that you're qualified to be there. But if you don't have a vision, then your qualifications really are in question, because no one is going to want to follow you.
And it's not just vision for an organization; it is vision for each individual. And that's why this is so important, that we start looking inside to figure out really who we are, so that we can be connected to the right people, so that we can fulfill purpose and destiny in our lives. We each need to know what our future looks like. So good leaders, in addition to people outside, whether it's a pastor or on your job, parents being able to see and have vision for their children and for their family, giving everybody something to be excited about and something to look forward to, because each person is being exposed to whatever is going to help them become better at whatever their gifts and talents are, and not to the degree that the child is doing what the parent wants them to do, but to the degree that those natural giftings and talents that are within the child, that they can pursue that, whatever it is that they enjoy. And that takes someone who understands the power of influence. And you do that with the person in mind that you influence. Yeah, and you talked about you had gifts and talents, but we know the Bible actually calls them gifts and callings, right? So when you're in you're a parent of a child, you're observing your child, you're examining them, and you want to really help them discern their gifts and callings. And then in the church, you would think that's one of the primary reasons that organization exists, is to help people understand their gifts and callings. And then even in organizations, because people come into an organization, they may get one job, but the reality is, most people are standing in their positions. I think these days they say like less than 2 or 3 years. So, and you can't take it personally that they want to leave, because their gifts and callings may be calling them someplace else. So ideally, if you can help them realize that and push them forward, they're going to give you all that they have while they're working with you. And as a matter of fact,
don't be surprised if you're really invested in people and you care about them. And let's say if you're in a manager position, maybe a manager, director, or some kind of vice president. You know, and I know a little earlier we slammed nepotism and hookups and all that kind of stuff. But if you have a competent, competent person, and you actually understand that they have gifts and callings and that they may move on, they may go out of their way to recommend somebody who they know will fit what you're looking for. They may refer a competent person to backfill their position quite simply because they like you, as opposed to what we traditionally see happening. And look, we see it happen in the church as well, right? People will say, you know what, I don't like you, and then they're just springing on you. I'm out of here. That won't happen when you really understand and you actually pour into people and help them realize and walk in their gifts and callings.
Right. So what we recommend is, if you are a good leader, this book is for you. If you are a poor leader and you're willing to admit that, this book is for you.
It's definitely for you.
And if you're not sure if you're a leader, if nothing we've said has resonated with you in a way that you can confidently understand your role as an influencer in whatever sphere or circle you're in, this book is for you, because it's going to help you understand what God is looking for. Because there are scriptural references, scriptures are given for every single day to help you see why this character development is so important. And you want to say something?
Yeah, you saw my body language gave it away. Okay. And also, if you're struggling getting ahead, this book is definitely for you, because sometimes the reality is you just may need to improve. And you may not know where you need to improve. And this book will actually help you become the kind of person that people will notice and want to promote. Yeah. So if you're just struggling, you may be in a position, you may even have a good position, but you may want a better position. But sometimes people just get stuck. This book will actually help unstick you. Or look, pardon my English, it'll help unstuck you.
Oh, you're allowed this week.
I'm allowed it. Okay. Yeah. This book will unstuck you, because it's going to make you the kind of person that, like I said, you can't help but being propelled forward if you do the things that we put in this book.
And this is just being. Even though these are things you have to do, this is because you just want to be a better person. You want to be an example. You want to be light and salt in the earth. You want to be a righteous example that God can use and promote, because you have chosen to become a person of great character and integrity
and excellence.
That's another we could talk about.
Yeah, and that's in the book as well, about being excellent.
Okay.
Yeah, and the cut no corners, no shoddy work. You got to be good at what you're doing. You have to be good.
I'm a stickler for that.
Yeah, so am I.
So is that it?
That's it. You want to talk about some of the things that we have coming up?
So before we go, just know that tomorrow we will be in Houston, Texas. If you are anywhere in that area, willing to drive to that area, we will be there for the Mountain Masters Conference. Tony and I are speakers on Saturday, and we will be actually talking about personal integrity. It's going to be an amazing, awesome time with many of the authors who are part of the anthology that we're all a part of.
No, you said Houston, Texas, but you didn't tell me it was going to be at Free Indeed Church.
Yeah, I was going to get to that.
Okay,
go ahead, though.
No, I just did. You can go ahead.
Yes, at Free Indeed. Free Indeed International is where we're going to be. You can get that information on our website, empower2engage.com, or you can go to our Facebook page, Empower to Engage, and all of the information is there. And then in the middle of February 17th, we are having our book signing event. That event is also on Facebook page. On our Facebook page, you can see it there, or on our website. We would love to have you with us. We're going to not only have books there and be signing books, autographing books, but we're going to have some conversations around love, marriage,
romance,
the roles of men and women at various intervals during the night. So that's from 5 to 9 on February 17th. Please check our page to get the information. What do you want to say?
No, you said we're going to have conversation, and just at the event on the 17th, the conversation is not just you and I talking.
It's interactive.
It's interactive, you know.
So people can make comments, ask questions, because we call it a robust, spirited conversation, because I'm sure everybody will have a lot to say. So if you can be with us, we would love it. Okay.
That's it.
I think that's it. Thank you so much. Please share the broadcast. This will be available on our Facebook page, and we will see you next
Thursday.
week. So why? What's happening next Thursday? You didn't say.
We'll go ahead and say because
next Thursday we start our February.
Okay, yeah. We just said. Oh, you were talking about the February event. Yeah, next Thursday we're gonna is first Thursday in February. So we're gonna go back to the marriage book, and we're gonna pick specific topics from the marriage book, and we're gonna be talking about, and really some of the same topics that we're gonna be talking about at the event in February. We're gonna be talking about romance and roles and how to get along, how to handle conflict.
I see you, Aunt Gloria.
All that kind of stuff that people always want to talk about. Sometimes people thinking about it, they scared to ask the question. Well, since we're not scared, we're gonna go ahead and talk about it. Next Thursday, next Thursday we're gonna start, and we're gonna focus on
the month of love.
That's what we're calling the month of love.
All right, so we'll see you next Thursday. If not this weekend, have a good night.
Peace.
Go ahead, click.